now watching the Vision channel, where Habakkuk 2 and 2 says, write the vision and make it plain, so they that see it can take it and run with it. This is the channel where faith and vision collide to bring forth a manifestation. You're watching the Vision channel. You're now watching the Vision channel, where Habakkuk 2 and 2 says, write the vision and make it plain, so they that see it can take it and run with it. This is the channel where faith and vision collide to bring forth a manifestation.
Good evening and welcome to Let's Talk with Sandra on tonight. Thank you for tuning in with your girl on tonight. My God, we have an exciting show for you on tonight. We are going to be talking about domestic violence. This issue I've been wanting to address for a while, but I look at it, everything is in God's timing. And this is the right time. And my special guest who I have with me in here on tonight, she is an overcomer. So we're going to be talking about domestic violence because it's so prevalent. It's so much domestic violence that's going on at this day and in this time. And we are going to address some of the issues. We are going to bring you some truth, some answers, and some solutions on tonight. So tune in, like us, share us, pick up the phone, text your friend, your neighbor, your co-worker, whoever you need to text. Let them know that we're going to be talking about domestic violence on tonight. So I'm so glad to have Dr. Clara Peters in the house with me on tonight. I'm so excited that she has come to share in with us, to share some light on domestic violence. So sit back, tune in, and you can call the hotline number that we have for you on tonight. That number is 1-888 4042. I'm sorry, it's 1-800-888-4042. Again, that number is 1-800-888-4042. So stay tuned with you on tonight. I'm going to let her introduce herself, her family, and what she does. And then we're going to jump into domestic violence and some of the issues that has taken place. I'm going to bring some issues to you that I have seen over probably the last 4 or 5 weeks. So I'm going to turn it over to her at this time.
Good evening. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Clara L. Peters, and I am a domestic violence survivor, overcomer, author, speaker, but most importantly, I'm a child of God. I'm a mother of 3, grandmother of 7, and a great-grandmother of 3. I speak out on domestic violence often due to the fact that it is on the rise. And so I am thankful for this invitation to come and speak and share some things in reference to domestic violence.
So as we jump into, we're going to be going, because we're running a little bit behind, but I wanted to give a few statistics on domestic violence. One of the first things was a young lady who was shot by her ex-boyfriend in front of her children. That's one of the issues that I saw. And then the next issue I saw was this was a murder-suicide that happened in Katy, Texas, where the husband shot the wife, then he turned the gun on himself. And then the next statistic that I saw was when the man of the girlfriend killed her 8-year-old son, who is now waiting for the time he will get. She was also charged, but she will probably spend the rest of her life in jail. She wasn't charged with killing the child, but she was an accessory to what was done to her child that she allowed to happen, and then to leave the other children in the home. by themselves for so long. So as we jump into this, Clara, what do you think about with this domestic violence stuff? What do you think about it?
Well, this is something that I've never thought I would be dealing with ever in life. And people always say, well, how you get with someone to do that? Person, then you never know who you getting involved with until you deep in it. And it was years after I was in the relationship with my ex-husband to where he started it. Why someone does that, only thing that I've ever came up with is something they saw growing up, is something bedded within them as to something that may have happened to them while they were a child, or they just one of those people that is very control freak. Because of the way it starts is they start out with isolating you, then they control you, every movement, and then from there, that's when the emotional abuse or verbal abuse starts. They start slow and they build their way up. And that's why I tell women now, because I've had some women tell me, but he's not hitting me. But he's still abusing you if he's doing the other things that you've shared with me that he's doing. Abuse is abuse. And it may not go forward to the hidden phase, but it's still abuse. Because the mental is just as worse as the physical.
Yes, it is. Yes,
just so happens the physical can end up being the ultimate, which is death.
Yes. Yes.
Love is not supposed to hurt.
Yes. Yes.
You know, so it's really hard to say why one would actually do that. But I see it as, I'm going to go here. When the pandemic happened, the rise for domestic violence went up. It increased tremendously. And a lot of who one is really came out because they had to be in that person's presence all the time. It may not have been as bad, but they got to see on a different level. Oh, I don't like you. I don't, you know, and it just increased. But it showed a lot of anger within those people because they couldn't get their way. They couldn't do what they want to do. So they was taking it out on the next person that is closest to them. And most times it's not about the person that's being abused. Now, there's some women and men that push, and then someone end up retaliating on them. But for the most part, 99.99% of the time, that person that's been abused did nothing wrong.
My God.
They did nothing wrong. It's all about that person trying to be in control. They wanted their way and their way at a, period. And sometimes you can be at a place and they will tell you, you better not talk to no one. They don't want you talking to anyone. They want you just to be there, and that's it. So it's many factors as to why one would want to abuse someone. And for some people, we may never know their cases. Like with me, I don't know why mine did that. I didn't see anything, which I probably wouldn't have been able to see it. But the time that I did spend with his parents, I didn't see that. I didn't see none. I only saw love. So the reason why I was being abused, I don't know. And I know that I would never know. But I know that I'm thankful that I did get out alive. It almost not happened. One time I almost lost my life not too far from here, but God.
But God.
Yeah.
Ooh, come on, help me give this woman of God a hand clap. Throw those waves up, because she is one of the ones that made it out. And we know some women don't make it out. I just gave you 2 statistics for an example,
right,
about the woman in Missouri City, about the woman that lived in Katy. They did not make it out. So I salute this woman of God on tonight, that God allowed her to make it out so that she can share her testimony Although I know it wasn't easy, Clara, but God made a way so you can make it out of that situation. And I want to make a correction on that phone number. You can call in any questions that you may have for her. 281-888-4042. Again, that hotline number is 281-888-4042. So the next question I wanted to ask you, when it comes to domestic violence, how do you know the victim from the abuser? It's a thin line sometimes.
And that's true. And because a lot of times people are like, but you don't look like you've been abused. But my thing is, what do a person look like? What are you supposed to look like being abused? What does a sick person look like? You look like what you give into. And because of how I was raised, I better not step out of the house looking like who did it and what done it. Period. So, no, I don't look like what I went through, but the scars are there. The scars are truly there. And the one way, and I've said this to several people, even when I'm speaking somewhere, I've shared that what you should do when you get around your family, your friends, or you around a friend or a family member, and he or she, especially, I'm just going to go with the women. If they're not acting the way they normally will act, pay attention to that. That's a sign. That's a sign. I had to go speak at this college on the north side. And in speaking, I can tell which one of those women was having issues. And when I got through speaking, and the two administrators that was there, and we was talking, and I showed them who I need them to watch out for, and they confirmed to me that some days she comes to school with black eyes.
Jesus.
And and one of them, I kept trying to get her to talk to me, but she was afraid. I said, just know, baby, that somebody's here for you. Yes. You do not have to be in silence. I was in silence. No one knew until I decided to file for divorce. But it took courage to do that. I had to be strategic in doing that. And that's one thing that I try to tell the women. Don't let him know that you're leaving. Right. Don't let him know. My ex, he never would do certain things that I wanted him to do or that needed to be done. And he was like, no, because if I do that, you're going to leave me. No, if I let you go back to school and finish school, you're going to get a good job and you're going to leave me. No, you can't do that because you're going to leave me. So they had a fear of you going up or doing better than them and you're going to leave them. They didn't want you to have money. He didn't want me to work. After a few years, I had to finally say, you know what? I got to do this. I got to get out of here. It was hard some days. Going and coming. But I had to remember that there was a plan in the end, and I just have to keep the focus. And when the time comes to pull the trigger, I have to wait for God. And when he gave me the sign, I executed it. But I was with him for right at 20 years.
Those of you, my listening audience, you hear this. She was with her ex-husband in that situation for 20 years. Do you know the Lord brought her out of 20 years? But you do know that you don't have to stay in that situation for 20 years.
You don't.
There is help for you. All you have to do is pick up the phone, call someone. But like she just said, you don't have to tell him that you're leaving him. That's one of the big mistakes, and I'm glad you brought that up, that you could make, is letting him know that you are leaving. And that's a trigger for him.
It is a real trigger. Because when I did have him serve, he got mad. He cussed my lawyer out. He cussed me out. And my server was like, do not go home. He's a big dude. Do not go home. And my lawyer was like, well, do you have somewhere to stay? And I was like, yes, I do have somewhere to stay. I went to my niece and then stayed at a friend. But do not tell him that you're leaving. Plan your exit strategy. Plan it to a point to where you have it down so packed to where you know that it is soundproof. And once you know that and don't tell anyone until you know that strategy is soundproof. and that you're able to get away with no problem. I didn't have friends like that. I had, well, I ended up with friends who still lifelong friends right now, but they was friends due to, you know, how you have kids and that's how you meet. So that was how I had friends. But further than for as him really allow me, But this one young lady, she was like, no. So she kind of knew what was going on, and she was ready. She said, so you just let me know, and I got you. So I kind of sort of let her know, but I didn't let her know everything. But when things did happen, oh, she was there every step of the way. So you have to make sure you have one person that you can call on. I've been asked, well, why didn't you call your family? Well, I have a brother two brothers and a dad. Never been in trouble. So I could have called home to Louisiana and said, this fool out here doing da-da-da-da-da to me. They would have came here, somebody would have got hurt. Now, this is mine. I had to do it my way. But the way we are speaking out about domestic violence now, they didn't have it back then. Right. So there was no other women that I can call on, no support groups that I can call on. No one is not the way it is when it was when I was going through. So that's why I encourage the ladies, don't be silent. I was silent for too many years. And honestly, if it was up to me, no one would never know that what I endured, because I'm a quiet, shy country girl, tomboyish. Most people don't think so when they see me, but I didn't want to tell my business like that because I felt like I was going to be judged. I already felt like a failure, but then I had to realize it wasn't about you. It wasn't your fault. You didn't do it to yourself. You didn't get into this relationship with this man assuming that he's going to do this to you. So I had to go through a process. So the healing process that I had to go through, it was hard and it was a lot, and I cried many days, just like I did when I was still with him, cried many days. But when I got to a point to where I knew I was good, I was good.
So families who are affected with domestic violence, do they see this coming?
Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. Because I've seen where some family members like, but he don't seem like he's that type of person. Well, he may not seem like that type of person, but he was. I know a few people personally, a couple of people personally, and I never would have thought that they would, but they did. And luckily, their spouse didn't stay in as long as I did, and they got out. Now, the men will be bitter. They will be bitter because, number one, you left, and he does not have control over you anymore. He lost his control. Or mine lost his control big time. And when he left, and when he had to leave, once I filed, but when things started changing me in my life, he didn't like that because I was supposed to be down. I was not supposed to be happy in life. I was not supposed to be happy. And that's another thing. If they see you happy, they don't like that. But that's their issue. And I always tell women, especially those that saying, well, he's not hitting me, whatever. And I will tell them, so he's still abusing you. But if he loved you, he would get the help. He would get help. He would set you free, get the help. And if y'all are meant to be together, then God will bring y'all back together. But if not, he needs to get the help because you don't deserve this. No one deserves to be treated bad. And my thing is always this: how would you like it if I beat on you? How would you like it if I cuss you out and belittled you and disrespect you? How would you like that? Them men are not gonna like that. But I can say that there's also men that has been abused because I've interviewed some. Okay.
So domestic violence comes in many fashions.
Yes, it does.
Can you give me an example?
Okay. A lot of people think it's just physical because they're always hearing about women that has been killed due to domestic violence. But there's verbal, emotional, there's financial. People don't think about financial. There's spiritual, there's sexual, And then, and come to the sexual people be like, but how can that be? Especially if you're married. Oh, no is no. Married or not, no is no. So, and I can say this. I'm going to use this for an example. Many years after my divorce, I met this guy, and we started dating. And he had asked me this particular night, he had said, why is it when I do a certain thing, you jump? And I was like, huh? He said, let me ask this first. He said, we've never talked about your marriage. He said, did your husband abuse you? I said, why? And he said, every time I try to put my arm around you, you duck.
Jesus.
And I was like, and I started paying attention to that, as you know, and I'm like, oh my God. Because when he go, and I do like this, because when we're in the car, if he's mad about something, he hauls off and do this.
Wow.
So when the young man that I was, befriended, when he went this way, I'm assuming he's doing like my ex-husband was about to do. But that's not him. That's never been his character. And I'm like, okay, wow. So it may be years later, you still going to have some triggers. But it's how you handle those triggers. So that's why I always say, and I said this to a group of women that's within my ministry, always check in with yourself. Because when we are mothers, when we're wives, and everything else you may do, you lose who you are. So check in with you to make sure you're right, mentally, spiritually, physically. Because that spiritual, I was stopped from going to church on many Sundays. And me and my children dress, he would stop it.
Jesus. My God.
Yes. There was times to where I'm just enjoying my day watching a movie, and he comes home and he playing, to him, I need to be at the door, waiting on him. And at his beck and call, but to see me happy, me enjoying me, no. There was no such thing. No such thing at all.
Almost like, I'm going to say not almost like, it was a possession.
Yeah. Yes.
My God. Viewers, listeners, if you have any questions, please call this number. If you just need to reach out to someone, call this hotline number, 281-888-4042. She is helping somebody out there who's listening, that's tuned in on tonight. I'm just at awe and amazed to her just sitting here sharing her testimony. Because I can sit here and I can talk a little bit about mental abuse because I've been there. But I wanted to address more domestic violence, even though it's one and the same. But because as you brought up 2020, when COVID hit, it really hit the fan.
It hit the fans.
It started coming left and right, cases. And like you said, because we had to be shut in with each other.
Yes.
Something that we were not accustomed to doing. We were like in and out. We dealt with each other accordingly as we came and went.
Right.
So this is a serious crime, and we have it all in our families. I don't care who you are. We can't ignore the elephant in the room. My viewers are listening, so Clara, what are some of the signs? This needs to be talked about over and over again. Because the more we talk about it, the more we get it out there, the more women we can help.
True. True.
They shut it under the rug too much. No, this needs to be talked about on a daily basis.
Definitely, because domestic violence happens every second of every day. There's more than 10 million men and women that is being abused each and every day. It's 1 in 4 women, 1 in 7 men, each and every day. So the way it starts is they isolate you. I came from Louisiana to Houston. He knew I had no one here. I knew of people, but they were older people, you know, that moved here years. But he knew I didn't have my family here. Then he wouldn't let me befriend anybody. When I did try to make friends with someone, he shut that down. Didn't want me to work, so I didn't work for years. So they're going to isolate you, get you away from family and friends, do their best to not allow you to have any friends. Or if you do have friends, they're going to sabotage that relationship. One way or the other, they're going to try to sabotage that relationship so that you can be at their beck and call at all times. So pay attention to when you see a family member. You don't see them as often. When you call them, they may not answer. You may call several times, and when they finally do answer, you can tell that they're nervous. Pay attention to that. That's a sign, and you need to check into it. Even if you just say, "I'm here for you," no matter what it is. This is a free judgment zone. I would not judge you, but if you need help, just let me know, and I got you. And that's sometimes all what someone needs to hear, is that someone have them. And I had that friend. Yeah. I had two, matter of fact. They had me. So but it took me some time to really say something about it, even to them. But one of them, she already knew, and she had been knowing for a while, but she was like, I didn't know how to come out and say anything to you. And she barged her way into my life. And I ain't gonna say barged her way in, but she knew that he didn't want me to have any friends. And we both was pregnant at the same time, so she used that as a way of she and I becoming close. And after 36, 37 years, we're still close. We're still close. So, but God. So find you that one or two close friends that you can talk to. Even if it's a sister friend, one of your sisters that you know, that y'all are real close. Talk to them. But do know that it's not your fault. I want to make sure that the women know it's not your fault. You didn't do nothing. You did not do nothing wrong. You are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you were created in God's image. You was put here on purpose, for purpose. You was not put here to be someone's punching bag or just a mental dumping bag. You was not put here for that. So I want you to know, don't let him steal who you are. Don't let them take what God has given you. I was mad with myself for a long time. And sometimes it comes back up, whatever, because, you know, and I was like, you know, and I get mad, and I have to do a process of elimination, and I have to, you know, it's like, look, Clara, you did what you had to do at that time. Right. You got you out. Right. You got your children out. My oldest child, she was already out of the house and married by the time I finally left, but I still had two left at home. And as a matter of fact, her and her husband had moved to Louisiana, where I'm from. She was born there too. But when the last thing that happened, and my kids called her, she's like, I'm coming back. So she came back, because the idea of me dealing with something the way that went down, she came back. And didn't want her to, but I knew her. And that's all of my three of my babies. Those are my reasons. Those are my whys. And that's why, even with me speaking, because at one point I was speaking early on when I started speaking, and it just dropped in my spirit. I was like, let me check with my kids and see how they feel. So I sent a group text to them, and my son called me, and he said, baby, he said, this is what God has told you to do. And he said, and you are helping women. He said, just so happened our Father's on the front street is not about him. It's about what you had to endure and what you have to do to help other women. Yes. And he said, keep doing what you're doing. So, but I just had to check to see how they felt in reference to that.
Are there silent signs of domestic violence?
Silent signs? No. There's no silent signs.
No silent signs. In our emotions and our physics, domestic violence is very challenging. It either sends us in 3 directions, which is fright, fight, or flight.
Yeah.
My pastor always says, and I'm a let you answer this. I'm gonna go to this question first before I jump into that one. When do you know when it's time to run?
That is a good question. It took me longer than it should have. And I was fearful. I was fearful of what he may do. Number one, I did not want to go back to Louisiana, but I could have easily went. I could have called my parents. They would have came here, got me, put me a place on the land back home. But I did not want to go back there. Because it's the country. The nearest city is New Orleans. That's 2 hours away. So I just really didn't want, well, not 2 hours, about an hour and a half, somewhere like that. But I just didn't want to go back there. So I stayed. And when I decided to leave, he did something that made me really frightened. Right here on Gulf Freeway, right there, Gulf Gate Mall on 45. We was coming home from friend's house out Highway 6, out that area. And he got mad. It was a bunch of us that was there, men and women, husband and wives, some children, all that. And even the men of the house, you know, you go to somebody's house, they can always talk to you. Right. He had an issue with that. So as we was driving home, and right when we got there, he's already done hit me a couple times. But then right there, right as we passed over, right there at Gulf Gate Mall, where it's not the mall anymore, but you know what I'm talking about. He stopped, he beat me, and he left me there for dead. My God. And that is what was like, okay, girl, what are you going to do? Lay here and die, or are you going to go save your children? Because he had my 3 children in the back seat of the car. It took everything in me to get up because I was hurting. I was in pain. And after that happened, I managed to get home. It took a lot. Trying to get off the freeway from one side to the other side, it took a lot. I had a long way to go still to get to the house. And during that week, I was trying to strategize to see what I can do. And at that moment, I was not working. And that's when I started making my exit strategy. But again, it still took me some years. But I was afraid, and I knew I had to do it strategically because of what he did then. And that's why I say to the women, when you get ready to do it, make sure you do your plan accordingly. I feel as though that when your spirit man tells you it's time to go, if I had to do it all over again, I would have taken my little butt back home to the country and rebuild from there and be in peace and not in pieces. And I talk about that all the time, being in peace and not in pieces, because I didn't have peace in my house. My God. I didn't know what peace was like until one day when a girlfriend of mine, the first one that I mentioned, rearranged the house. She came to my house with my kids. This was after him and I split. And I didn't know she was there because she lived at the corner from where I live. We live like almost on the same street. And so she was inside and I went in from the garage. And when I get there, I said, hey, girl. She said, hey. And she was telling me what her and the kids was doing and what they did. And then she said, come here. And so she took me to the front door, and then she was like, come on outside. And then she turned around and went back in and locked the door. I said, wait a minute. But she was doing something. And then she opened the door, and she said, come on in. Welcome home. And she said, how do you feel? And I took a deep breath, and I said, I feel peace. She said, okay, well, I'm going home now, and gave me a hug and said, I love you, and she went on home. And she said, I feel peace. She said, okay, well, I'm going home now, and gave me a hug and said, I love you, and she went on home. And she went on home. And she said, okay, well, I'm going home now, and gave me a hug and said, I love you, and she went on home. And she said, okay, well, I'm going home now, and gave me a hug and said, I love you, and she went on home. And And I always like to share that because when you have gone through years of not really getting good sleep, because you can wake up with somebody beating on you.
Yes.
If you go to the grocery store, you're timed. And if you're 1 minute behind, you may get a fist that you're hitting you when you walk through that door because you had a time frame.
Jesus.
So and I try to encourage the women, when you see it getting to the point to where he's controlling your every movement, run. Don't let it get to the place to where he started hitting you. Go before then. Don't assume that just because he's not hitting you that there's not abuse. Yes, it is. Because controlling the time for me to go to the grocery store, shop, and all of that, then come on, timing me for that, and I'm not back in the time that he think I should be, and then want to jump. No, that's wrong. That's control. Move. It's time to say goodbye. Because God didn't put us here for that. He did not put us here for that. So that's one thing that I try to tell the women, and whoever's listening right now. Love you enough. Not saying I didn't love me, but love you enough to say no, not today. I stayed because I one of the reasons why I stayed also is because I wanted my kids to be in the same household with their father. My oldest daughter, I always say mine, but it's our oldest daughter. She got the whole, to live with him the whole time. But if I had to do it all over again, it never would have happened. I probably, when that night that happened on Gulf Freeway, probably that next morning I would have been calling my parents. That's what I should have did. But I didn't. I sacrificed. And then every time I tried to do it after that, something just kept coming up. And then I just cried to God. I said, you got to do something. I got to get out of here. I can't do this anymore. And when he did.
My God. We have a few more questions. Our time is almost up. I want to get to these the next 3 questions. How do you know signs when you're in the fight mode?
How do you know the sign when you're in the fight mode? If you're in the fight mode, you know it's a sign. Because once you get there, life is not supposed to be fighting. You're supposed to be in peace. Not saying things are going to be good all the time. But if you're constantly arguing every day, if you're constantly at odds every day, that's your sign. This is not where I'm supposed to be. I'm going to go here with me right now. People always ask me, you're gorgeous, you're beautiful. Why are you not married? Oh, I could have been a long time ago. Still could be now. But the thing is that I'm not just going to settle just to say I have a man. I'm not going to settle just to say I got a husband. Why? Because I love me.
Right.
I love me, and I just refuse to allow someone to come in, verbal, spiritual, physical, to do that to me. No. Do I want a husband? I know I'm a wife. But the fact that I know that there's certain things that I cannot do, and that's one thing that I want to also bring to the women. If there's something that you know you can't take and it just vests your spirit, run away from it. Because a lot of times people try to say, well, I can change him. No, you can't.
Only God can do that.
Only God can. I had this homeboy of mine to say, well, why you ain't say something to me? I could have talked to him, and I said, no, you couldn't have. And he went there. I said, look, you couldn't have changed his mind for nothing in the world. Nothing. I said, because if he wanted to change, all the options that I gave him, he would have stopped. But he didn't know how. And I could remember a time he asked me, he said, well, what can I do? I said, well, since we really don't know each other, because evidently you don't know me because you keep doing the crazy stuff, date me. Date me so you can get to know me. He didn't know how to do that.
Right.
And that was sad. He did not know how to do that. And the 2 months that I did go on a date with him, he had another couple friend of his to come with us. And I said, for you to date me, how are you dating me if someone else is here?
Right.
You talking to him. You're not talking to me.
Don't know how to conversate.
Don't know how to.
My God. And this is something that my pastor, he always say, He always says when you have your hand in the lion's mouth, you can't just jerk it out. You have to wiggle your way out of it. And a lot of people don't realize that, because what end up happening, a lot of people want to jerk their hand out. And you gave so many points as to when you were in that type of situation. You plan, you prepare, and then when it's time to move, you move.
Yes.
That's wiggling your way out of that type of situation.
Yes.
So it always reminds me when something is going on, something like this, domestic violence or something, some type of violent situation with couples. I always think about that, and it always brings me to that he always says, domestic violence affects the whole family.
Everybody, yes.
I mean, I think it affects the children the most. What do you think?
Yes, it does. Especially if you, because like with me, I thought I was hiding certain stuff from them, but then they've revealed over the years of certain stuff that they knew about that I didn't know. But we think we're staying there and doing something right by allowing them to be there with both their parents, but it's not good for them, because they can grow up being bitter, being mean. They can grow up doing the same thing, you know, but it's best not to do that. It's best to say that if this has to be this way, the kids don't need to see this. A lot of the women that is dealing with men that are abusive, 9 times out of 10 is because of what he saw done. And I never thought about the kids for as how that would affect them until after I came out of it, and I was like, so at night, even when I was still with him, but after he was gone, I walked around and I prayed. I prayed over my kids. I prayed over them. And thankfully they have not endured that. And I pray that they don't, well, they real grown now, so, you know, but, and they be continuously in loving relationships, in which they are now. And that's why I always say, make sure when you talking to your children as they're growing up, and you tell them how man is supposed to treat you. You tell them how a woman is supposed to treat you. You do that because when they grow up, he or she is they're going to be able to know, no, this is not right. I'm not going to endure this. Because a man would, oops. I'm sorry. I almost fell there. What a man loves doing is tearing down your confidence, right. Tearing down who you are, right. You know, and making you feel belittled. But you have to make sure that you're not that. Right. And they feel as though, when they feel as though you're weak, they got you.
Yes, yes.
I don't think he believed that I was a weak woman, but I felt I can say that because he had me away from them, I was isolated, so he can maneuver right. That way. Right. But no way. He tried to come. I'm not that Clara. I'm not her. Try me.
She don't live here anymore.
She been gone. She been gone. She left a long time. Try me if you want to. She's not her. But one thing before we end, I do want to encourage the women. Forgive yourself.
It's a big part of it.
Forgive yourself.
So before you end,
okay.
This last question I want you to address, because the domestic violence, it affects people that you don't even think that's going through it.
True.
Men are victims also.
Yeah. People
don't realize men are victims also. We smile in public, but we suffer in private.
I had an event, and I had about 12 to 15 women that had confirmed that they was going to meet me at Boudreaux's. This was like 2 or 3 years before COVID hit. And it was in reference to Let's Talk Domestic Violence. And I've had, even up to that morning, women confirming they're going to be there. Sandra, when I say not one showed up, but God had a ram in the bush. So I'm at the fountain doing my drink, and it was 2 guys sitting at the bar. And there were only 2 at the bar. And Boudreaux's was kind of packed that day. And one of the guys was asking me, they was like, hey, who are those old ladies? I said, why you have to call them old? But it was a group of sorority sisters. I'm not going to call out the name of the sorority. But a lot of organizations was there that day for whatever reason. And he said, so are you with them? I said, no. I said, I'm here to meet with some ladies in reference to Let's Talk Domestic Violence. And they said, well, come sit over here with us and we can talk about it. And I was like, huh? It was 2 guys, and one of them shared his story of being abused. And his friend knew about it. And his friend, as he's telling the story to me, his friend laughing, talking about, he said the N-word. I don't like that word. He was like, as tall as you is, and as short as she was, how do you could? I said the reason why he didn't is due to the fact that he's a real man, and he was taught not to put his hand on a woman. Crazy. He was sitting there acting crazy. The guy was sharing his story, and then we're just talking. But he's acting crazy. And before I knew it, this man had invited, sitting there acting crazy, he invited a lot of other people that was there over to the table. Sandra, I was at that table with 12 men.
But you see how God worked it? That's how God wanted it.
Yes.
You thought it was going to happen one way.
Oh, yeah.
God say, no,
Oh, yeah.
turn it around
He got the
in a whole
victory.
different light.
He got the victory.
What he wanted.
Yes.
Just from these 2 men.
Yes.
That was sitting at that bar. You don't know how you helped those people, but that's how God ordained it.
Yes, he
Because
did.
that's the kind of stuff God do. He ordains.
He ordains, yes.
The way he wanted to happen.
Yes. And when I tell you, it was some men that were set free that day. And at the end, because I said, I got to go. And the one that was acting crazy, he said, but Pastor, you got to pray us out. And I looked at him. I never told you my name. I never told you who I was. He said, but you're a pastor, right? And I said, yes. He said, so we in the bar section now, okay? At Boudreaux's. Everyone stood up and we held hands and I prayed us out. And I was like, wow. It couldn't have been nobody but God. Because not one of those ladies showed up. Not one of them contacted me in reference to that. And when I went back, because I had went to get my hair done that morning, I told my girlfriend I was coming back once I'm done. When I went back and told her, we in her salon, and she was just, there was nobody but God. You know, she just was going. And I was like, yes, it was a setup from him.
Yep.
I didn't go there for the women. I had to go there for the men.
Yes.
And I was really blessed. I was really blessed. I haven't, one of the guys, the guy that shared his story from time to time, you know, he'll check in with me or vice versa. But good guy. And I'm like, wow. Some women don't know what they have, just like the men does not, right, just like the men don't know what they have until it's gone.
True. So true.
But
Yes.
we just have to keep pushing and keep moving, whether man or woman.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So as we get ready to close out, I want to thank Dr. Clara Peters for coming and sharing with us on tonight. But I want to leave you first with this. I want victims and abusers to know you don't have to suffer alone. There is help for you out there. I gave you a hotline number you could call, which was 281-888-4042. You can reach out to your pastor, to a trusted friend, a sister, a brother, somebody that you can trust. Please don't suffer in silence.
Amen.
When you don't have to. So I thank you for tuning in with us on tonight. We just bless God for you. I hope something was said to help you if you are dealing with domestic violence. So I'm going to ask that you will tune in with us next week for another exciting show. I'm so glad. I just have to thank again this woman of God. She has truly blessed me on tonight with her testimony. And she is helping and blessing so many women. You can reach out to her on Facebook as Dr. Clara Peters. If you have any questions for her, message her. You're on. Tell them what else you're on, Dr. Clara. They can reach out to you.
Yeah, they can reach out to me on Facebook, Dr. Clara L. Peters. IG, I am Dr. Clara L. Peters. I am always available to help, to talk to people in reference to what's going on with their life and how they can make a plan to get out. If you need someone to come and speak at your event, I'm available to do that. I do speaking engagements as well in reference to domestic violence.
So thank you all for tuning in with your girl. I look forward to seeing you on next Tuesday for another exciting show. So be blessed. Good night.
Hi, everyone. I'd like to personally thank you for participating in our online broadcast at Deliverance Temple House of Refuge. We pray that you enjoyed the message. If you're not part of our online family, please subscribe to our channel and never miss one of our life-changing and uplifting broadcasts. If you are in the Pearland area on Sunday, join us at one of our powerful worship services at 8 a.m., 10 a.m., or 12 p.m., or on Friday at 7 p.m. We look forward to serving you, your family, and friends. If you happen to miss one of our messages, you can find them on one of our platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. We truly appreciate you investing your time with us.